In the name of net zero, we're going to have so many new taxes and fines and regulations. One of them is the so-called food tax, the net zero food tax. And in this video, we're going to explain what it is and how it's going to actually work and how it's going to destroy the supermarket industry and the consumers, because the cost will always get thrown into the face of the consumers. All right, let's talk about this sustainable world that we have in the name of net zero. So we have this net zero grocery tax that will push shopping bills up by £4 billion. £4 billion. This is another cash cow scheme for the government to make extra money at the cost of people completely losing out. And we already have high inflation. We already have high tax society compared to last few decades, right? That tax burden is at its highest in decades. And we have everything being expensive. And then we have ULEZ, Sadiq Khan doing all that, and then the low traffic neighborhoods and everything else. And they're adding more new taxes, the food tax or grocery tax, because they want to get the supermarkets and all these guys to do more recycling. But they're making it obviously more difficult in terms of paperwork and bureaucracy, but also in terms of the tax on it. So what supermarkets have said they're going to do, they're going to have to, is they're going to make some cutbacks in terms of the staff. So some people will lose their jobs. They're also going to transfer the cost to the consumers, the customers who go to these shops. So they're going to make the products more expensive in order for the shops to be able to comply with these net zero measures. Idiocy, absolute idiocy. What do you expect them to do? I mean, if I was running a shop, I would do the same thing because I have no choice. I'm going to have to pass along the cost. So the British Retail Consortium, the BRC, came out to say, well, taken together, the schemes could increase household shopping bills by up to £140 per year, based on the consortium's estimate of an overall £4 billion cost. So that's just the beginning of it. This is just the basic estimate of what could happen as a reaction, right? We know this, but at the same time, the officials are saying something else. This is all thanks to this idiot, Michael Gove. This is Michael Gove's pet project when he was educating the Environment Secretary. And he came up with this idea. Well, it wasn't even his idea. These ideas came from Davos and many other places, the European Union. And they're all doing it at the same time, all these countries. Now, they are saying, the government, that the funds raised from retailers will go towards the operation and improvement of local council recycling services, with the fees acting as an incentive for firms to use less packaging. Hang on. So you're taking people's money and you're handing it over to local councils who've been completely wasting taxpayers' money for the past few decades, for the past few centuries. And now you say, even though the same councils who are also making extra money now by raising income tax and adding more to these low traffic neighborhoods and everything else that we have, right? And you want them to give them to help to improve their recycling services. If they wanted to improve their recycling services, they would have done it by now. They had enough funding, but they've been making cuts. They've been completely destroying the local communities and the actual essential public services in order to help with their vanity projects. And you think they will be accountable and they will be so credible to be handed all this money, and they're going to do it. Everything's going to be perfect. Don't worry, guys. It's just insane. Now, the government's official impact assessments of the two schemes, seen by Telegraph, acknowledge that the entire cost due to fall on retailers could simply be passed on to consumers. Even the government admit this. Now, this scheme was actually called the Extended Producer Responsibility, would most likely increase household bills by £40 a year, up to 48. But this was, again, the initial assessment. But now they're saying, well, yeah, actually, it could be much, much higher than that. And add it to inflation, and you can see the CPI rates and everything else in this graph. Food inflation remains stubborn in the UK and European Union. We are still slightly better than the European Union. We know that. But the US is going down in terms of the inflation, so that's good. US is doing better for obvious reasons. Because America, luckily for them, because they have so many different states, and we have enough conservative states that are not going crazy with net zero agenda or with high taxes. So they are allowing, like Florida is a very good example, massive state, they are allowing the economy to grow. And they are still energy independent. They can extract their own shale gas. They got so much for them going on, and they sell to the world more. And now we're just sitting here thinking, we were supposed to be Brexit Britain, global Britain, independent Britain. What are we actually doing? Well, it's not we, it's our governments, it's our politicians, it's the establishment. They're completely wasting this opportunity. Now, we've got some right-wingers who've come out to react badly to this. One of them is David Frost. Lord Frost said, it makes no sense at all to try to cap food prices on the one hand and implement a new tax on food on the other. In a cost of living crisis, what people absolutely do not need is for food prices to go up because we are putting more unnecessary costs on business with the spurious justification of net zero. That's absolutely a good point. You can't go out there and say we're going to help the cost of living crisis and add to it. So Frost is spot on. There's another figure, that is Jacob Rees-Mogg. He came out to also say, on the one hand, the government is trying to cap share prices in shops, and on the other, it is piling billions onto our food industry when their supply chains are already under strain. The British people will pay the price with empty shelves in supermarkets and more expensive food. If this is our approach to net zero, our voters will punish us harshly. This is absolutely spot on. The voters will punish the Tory government for doing that, but unfortunately, because of the way the propaganda machine works, the mainstream media and the whole of the culture, the political culture, the voters would assume, a lot of them, well, we don't like this, so we're going to punish the Tories, so we're going to end up voting Labour without knowing that the Labour Party also have these ideas, but much worse. So they're going to make Keir Starmer Prime Minister in order to punish Rishi Sunak, rightly so, thinking, well, do you think you're not going to have this idiotic scheme, for example? You're going to have this scheme times 10 if Keir Starmer becomes Prime Minister. It's not a good reason to vote Tory again, but it's not a good reason to vote Labour in order to punish the Tories either. It's a lose-lose situation. People need to wake up at some point that we can't just live in a country where you've got the two main parties who are right now similar. You can't keep voting between the two. Ideally, you want the Tories to become conservative again. In the meantime, while they're doing that, if they ever do that again, you can't vote Labour as an alternative. That's just not the right idea. Anyway, I get frustrated over this. Let me know what you think in the comment section. I'm Mahyar Tousi, and we are the media.